Arvon and Petra. Once there was a young stonemason named Arvon. He was under the tutelage of Master Mason Burgon, who himself had learned the art of stonework from his grandfather Mort, who was said to have been the most skilled stonemason the region had ever known. So young Arvon felt sure he was in good hands and would also one day build the most beautiful stone structures anyone could imagine, and that they too would be loved and appreciated as those created by his teachers before him. Arvon's morning task was to attend the stone field, to sort the boulders, rocks, and remnants. He would group them together in rows of like piles, depending on the shape and size of the rocks. Aqua-tinted limestone, mauve granite, rare shards of glassy black obsidian, and green patina ores. All were arranged so as to be considered for their best use. Each day during this task, in the early hours just after dawn, the women of the village would make their way to the market. There they would collect the day's fruits and vegetables, an occasional oxtail or octopus, and sometimes brightly colored fabrics and baskets of freshly baked bread. The path to the market led them by Arvon's stone field, so when they passed by, he would rise and wipe the sweat from his brow and bid them each good day. No surprise in that his name Arvon means friend of the people. And as Arvon was yet a young man, who was also cut not unlike the stones he stacked, lean and solid, his attention was drawn to one particularly fair maiden. Her name was Petra. She had long flowing black hair that reminded him of the obsidian he loved to handle. He imagined her hair might feel as soft and smooth as the glassy stone, but warmer to his touch. Petra often wore an aquamarine cotton dress that reminded him of the images of the goddesses he'd seen painted in the frescoes at Pompeii, where his grandfather had taken him to study. Petra was the ward of a wealthy merchant, a bellicose man more stern than the fleet of trading ships he commanded. Rumor was that he was descendant of the Visigoths who'd swept across the Mediterranean a century before, but this he would not admit. Still, with his wealth came privilege and control, two things he denied Petra for herself. Petra's father had been one of his ship captains, until once on a voyage to the Indies, the ship and all hands were lost at sea in a violent storm. And since Petra's mother had died in childbirth, the merchant took pity on her and had taken her in. Arvon, skilled though he was, being only a lowly craftsman in the eyes of the merchant, would never be accepted as a suitable caller for Petra's hand. Arvon knew this, and it pained him. He longed for her by day and dreamed of her at night. And he was certain, by the way that she slowly blinked her eyes and tilted her face toward him each morning passing by, that she felt the same way too. Petra was wise enough and kind enough not to encourage him, but woman enough to want to. So the tension between them grew. He felt it, the pull from deep within. So close they were, yet so far apart. If he could not give form to his feelings for her directly, he knew he must find another way to express it, or he would be torn apart. One day, Arvon's teacher Burgon was commissioned by the merchant to build a beautiful stone portico to surround his mansion. This meant Arvon would now be working in Petra's own backyard. The thought of being so close to her brought him great joy, but also increased his agony by knowing she would be kept from him. Arvon, having now been apprenticed to the master long enough, was offered the chance to aid in the design of the merchant's portico. He lay awake for nights on end with his thoughts alternating between the columns he would design and Petra, and how he wished the two could become one. Then it came to him. She and he were just like two columns, standing apart, but in service to holding up the same vision, separate yet unified. He imagined them drawing closer, and as his vision morphed, he saw the two become one, and one become two. Each of the columns he would build would be two columns, bound together from base to capital, but with space between them, two columns as one. When the design was submitted to the merchant, he was amused at this novel concept of dual columns, and his greed made him secretly feel as if he was getting two for the price of one, and he immediately accepted the design from Burgon, having no idea that it was actually Arvon's testament to his love for Petra. Arvon's work began in earnest. He would crown the columns with black obsidian at the capital and adorn them with green and aqua-colored ores, as Petra watched him work from her bedroom window with rapt attention. One particularly warm afternoon, feeling brave and that the merchant had stepped out, she decided to take Arvon a refreshment, lemonade sweetened with honey, and the bit of tomato spiced with thyme and virgin oil, and a carafe of fine wine. Arvon was delighted to see her approach with the tray of offerings. He took it from her hands and set it aside one of the half-assembled columns. He wanted to describe to her the meaning of the columns he had designed for her. He wanted her to know their secret. Before he spoke, he reached and took her arms in hand and drew her near him. Before he could begin, Petra said, "I fear the merchant will never allow me to serve you anything more than simple bread and wine. But please know, if I were free to choose, all that is mine to give would be yours." There was nothing more to be said. The secret of the stones could wait. Arvon pulled her tight against his body, closing the space between them, and enveloped her in a kiss. But as fate would have it, it was at exactly that moment the merchant returned. He was outraged at the sight. He felt betrayed, and in a moment of blind rage he drew his sword, lunged, and ran them through, piercing both their hearts, binding them, the secret of the stones, and their ill-fated love together forever in eternal sleep.